And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live Viviana live stream. And tonight's topic is how to build your career path from junior to the senior developer. Thank you for finding some time this evening to join my live stream. Please make sure you introduce yourselves in the comments. Let us know what you do and join our conversation with your comments and questions. And also, Melbourne, how are you going with lockdown number 6? You know, I feel like we're all just used to it, like just blending in to this, being at home feeling. So if you're new to my live stream, I'm Jana Martens, and I'm recently started my journey as an IT recruiter. And hence, I've started a new YouTube channel dedicated to IT career in Australia. So tonight, we are going to talk about how to build your career path from junior to senior developer. And Michael is going to share his valuable insights and real life experience when it comes to engineering career. So, the obviously world is changing. I'm sure there are a lot of you who've been thinking, what's next, how I can progress in my career, how I can boost my career potentials. It's an incredibly relevant topic these days. Please tag and share this with your friends who need to hear this live stream. So before I'll pass it on to Michael to introduce himself, just want to remind you that we are going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So to watch the replays, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. And I'm going live at the moment every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all things about IT career, job search, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. So again, we are going to answer all your questions from all the platforms. So please make sure to stay on the topic, ask as many questions as you want. And most active participants will maybe even get a nice surprise at the end of the live stream. So that's, enough of me talking. I'm just going to get Michael to introduce himself. Please.
Thank you, Jana. So, hello everyone. As you may have guessed, I'm Michael. I've been in the internet industry, I guess, for 25 odd years, and currently an engineering manager at Estimate One. So we do quoting and tendering software as a service for the construction industry.
That's nice and quick. Maggie is saying hi. He's a tech recruiter as well. Thank you for joining us tonight, Maggie. Again, guys, don't be shy. Please make sure to introduce yourselves in the comments to say hi. We need to know who's here, or otherwise it's, sometimes feels like people watching but not engaging, and you're like, oh, are you actually interested? So, Michael, I guess. First question before we really dive deep into this different stages of the career as a developer. Maybe tell us a little bit more about your career path and how did you go with the process yourself?
Yeah, so I've taken a very non-traditional path through my career. Somehow I managed to start at the top and promptly plummeted to the bottom, and I've been slowly working my way back up again since. So not long out of high school, I saw a computer shop open up over the road from Adelaide TAFE, and being the IT geek I was, went and chatted to the owner and got to know him, and after a couple of months we decided to start an internet access provider. So where he basically took on the CEO role, I took on the CTO role. After probably 12 or 18 months, I basically burnt myself out, realized I had no clue what I was doing, struggled to keep up with everything, so I ended up leaving there and then went through a series of jobs at varying levels in different bits of IT. So did a bit of systems integration, did some web development, worked in a couple of computer shops, got into some voice over IP stuff, slowly worked my way through until I came back to doing back-end development. And then got into the infrastructure side of things a bit and sort of rounded out my skill set. So I understood as many aspects as I could of the overall internet industry. So front-end development, back-end development, infrastructure, etc. And using that, I've then sort of progressed my way into leadership. And currently focusing more on being a people leader and doing a lot less code these days.
And I guess what was your like a biggest takeaway, from your interesting, starting from CTO and then then going backwards? What was your biggest takeaway from your journey?
I think probably the most surprising bit was that I've become a people person. The reason I got into computers was I basically didn't like humans. I would much rather have associated with pets. They were much more friendly. Somewhere over the years, I discovered that people are actually interesting, and if you're nice to them, they're nice in return, and you can help them on their journey and get some real satisfaction out of that. And when I first got into IT, I don't think I recognized that, and probably didn't recognize it for the better part of 15 years or more. So that was quite surprising. I think the other thing that's probably surprising for me is how easy it was to start a business with not enough knowledge to actually do it, for it to be reasonably successful. But then I don't think I had the self-awareness to recognize when I was about to come crashing down. So I think it's really important that if you're going to go down the path of trying to do self-employment, make sure you do it in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're probably my two big surprises.
100%. The sustainable part of self-employment can definitely relate to this one. I think everyone who try to build their own business get to that conclusion at some stage.
Yeah, and I guess out of that, there's a certain amount now of do as I say, not as I've done. I've led by example in how not to do things in some cases.
Terzun is actually saying hi as well. Wouldn't miss this session, guys. Thanks, Terzun. And we already have a first question, Michael, actually. Rez is asking, have you got any leadership training?
Not formal leadership training specifically around leadership, but I have done a lot of work to ensure that I've got the skills that I need there. So I've been involved, especially prior to the pandemic, been quite involved in some leadership meetups. They were very much sort of coaching and mentoring focused. I've discovered through experience ways of coaching and mentoring people that seem to fit with me. I've got heavily involved in the Agile community, learnt a lot from people there. So although there's no formal training, there's a lot of informal training. I have done a few courses either through previous employers or a couple of minor external ones, just short courses on specific bits. We have one that we regularly run at my current employer, Estimate 1, on how to give and how to receive feedback. And I've done that twice, and every time I get something out of it. So I'm waiting for the third one, which I'm sure won't be far away. So yeah, I don't think there's the need for formal training, but there is definitely a need for some coaching and mentoring and having a network that when you're not sure what to do, you can go and ask them.
Yeah. And sometimes I think that our everyday life is a great leadership training itself, if you learn how to get lessons from it.
Yeah, and if you want some really good leadership training, then have kids, and in about 15 years, you'll have some amazing leadership training that's going to challenge you.
That's an extreme one, okay? So
yeah. But it's also very expensive training.
It's the most expensive one. So okay, let's try to, I guess, today what we're trying to do, we're trying to kind of paint this picture of like transitioning from the junior to senior developer. And I guess, the first step is actually getting the first job in general. Yeah. So I think it's a really pain point for a lot of people there, how to actually get the industry in the beginning. So what's your, I guess, advice around that?
Yeah, I guess getting your foot in the door is always a challenge. So most people, after they finish uni or they've done a coding bootcamp, will jump into the graduate or intern developer role. They've generally got no real industry experience. So differentiating yourself from other graduates and interns can be extremely challenging. I'd probably say one of the key bits there is if you've contributed to open source or you've done some almost production ready examples of code, make sure that they're available for people to look at. really, I'm sure we said this last time I talked to you, make sure that you're out there networking on LinkedIn and other forums, Stack Overflow and that sort of thing. And that's just to get your foot in the door. Once you've actually got into the industry and you've got a graduate role or an intern role, the expectations from you will be quite low. People want to see you learning. So, and on that slide that we've got there, as I mentioned, it's expected there will be little to no industry experience, but your key focus is on learning. It's about gaining information. Depending on the type of organisation you're doing the internship at, you may find that they've got a very structured internship, or it might be completely ad hoc, or it could be somewhere in between for that matter. So yeah, if it's quite structured, then there might be a rotation through different departments. When it's more ad hoc, it's very much code pairing with other people in whatever team you're in, or following the next shiny thing and seeing where it takes you. So yeah, the key focus at that point is the breadth of your skill set. So try not to just focus on one item. I've seen a few people where they're like, oh, I've got an internship and it's a DevOps internship. It's like, that's great. You'll learn a lot about the cloud infrastructure or DevOps, but to be a rounded developer, you also need experience in other areas. So make sure if you're doing something like DevOps, make sure there's some back-end development in there. If you're doing front-end, again, you can do a bit of back-end. If you're doing back-end, choose one of the other two. They both interrelate really well. And I guess in terms of, yeah, go on.
I'm not sure how the internship works exactly, but when you're doing internship, can you choose your projects or?
It depends a bit on the employer. So if you go to one of the big four banks who have some absolutely amazing internship programs, they're going to be extremely structured. I think from memory, most of them do 2 6-month cycles. You get a certain amount of discretion in, I would like to do this, but for your second one or even your first one, but it depends on the availability of those positions as well. So you may not get exactly what you want. If you go to one of the consulting agencies, you'll find that it's a bit more ad hoc. It depends what projects they've got on at the time and how you can add value. The consultancies probably expect you to add a little bit of value even as an intern, just doing some of the grunt work, but you'll gain a lot of experience from that. If you move into like a product-focused SaaS organization, then you may find there's a lot more room to move and you can just chase shiny objects and go, oh, this sounds interesting, I'm going to get involved. And it'll be a lot less formal, but you'll still gain a lot of knowledge. It's just, it might be a wider breadth. I guess from what I've observed, most sort of graduate and intern roles tend to last somewhere between 6 months. Some of the agencies and some of the consultancies will have quite short internship programs. Most of the banks and the other big employers will have it around 1 year. And depending on the individual, you might do 2 internships in a row, or you might find that if you're at some organisations, you end up doing a longer internship. And it depends a little bit on how quickly you upskill as well. I've seen some people absolutely race through the graduate level and move into a junior position quite quickly, and others who it's taken them that little bit longer to actually gain the base knowledge and be confident enough to move up.
Yeah, and I guess the next step is a junior. So what's the difference between the intern and a junior?
Yeah, so I guess the junior is starting to add some value to the organisation. So you've got at least 6 months, potentially up to 2 years industry experience at this point. You understand how things work. You don't need your hand held on everything. You may be able to pick off some tasks and go and do them by yourself, or start code pairing and have some input into the solutions that are generated. You'll be comfortable with going, oh, I can see this task. I know I can do that one, so I'll just go and do it. Whereas the intern may be going, oh, there's this task here that sounds easy, but I want some help with it. You'll start becoming a more active part of the development team. So you'll be asking questions during planning sessions. They won't just be generic questions. They'll have a bit of focus to them. And I guess you'll still be learning a lot though. So rather than as an intern, almost everything you do is about learning. This is about extending the depth. So making a bit of a choice as to what area you want to focus in initially. I'll make mention a bit later on of a T-shaped skill set, which is if you picture sort of the letter T, you've got the breadth of skills, and then you're adding the depth on one section of it. So you're starting to extend that depth on the one item there. And generally, spend sort of 2 or 3 years at that level, just enough time to sort of consolidate the learning and get to a point where you're ready to move into sort of the mid-level dev, but really giving yourself enough time to make sure that you have a really good understanding. The other thing I'd probably suggest, and I don't think I've really covered it in the slides, is the Dunning-Kruger effect, where for people who aren't familiar with it, you kind of have a big peak at the start, and then I think that's usually called the peak of Mount Stupid, and then it drops down into the valley of despair and slowly builds its way back up. And the axis on that is your perceived level or your confidence and your competence. So generally somewhere around as you're moving into that junior developer phase is where you hit the valley of despair. And if you make it through, then you're basically almost ready to get up to the mid-level there.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I know everything. Oh, no, I know nothing.
Yeah. Yep. And then as you make your way up through sort of when you're getting into the mid-level, you're starting to go, hang on a minute, maybe I can actually do this. So yeah, that's 100%. Usually a good signifier that you're moving on.
Mazda is asking, like, I'm currently in my 2nd year of doing my software engineering course at MIT. What job opportunities for a good software job in Melbourne after I graduate? I know some back-end and some front-end.
Yeah, so
that's, the tricky question in a way.
Yeah, I think I would go out looking for the internships and the graduate programs, but especially on 2nd year, you've got a little bit of time. Start building the network. Go and find the people who are running these programs. Get involved in industry events where you can, especially as the pandemic restrictions start lifting, and we're able to get back out to meetups. Go and start talking to people. You'll find that there's a lot of, if you go to the AWS user group, for example, there's a group of the people that organise that are working for reasonable sized consultancies. Servian is another consulting company that also has a graduate program. Start networking with the people now, and in 2 years they'll have seen how far you've come. They'll see the value you can provide. But at the same time, also make sure you network with those who are in the earlier years of their studies and help them. But be willing to help people in a public way and get your name out there. It'll be the bit that means you get the job.
And I guess my question would be in terms of like good job. It's such a subjective terminology as well. So do you think that the students should kind of already decide in their mind what is kind of have this picture of what's a good job for them and have a bit of a clear understanding, or you think it's too hard to do it so early?
I don't think it's possible unless they're a mature age student or doing a career change. I don't think it's possible for someone to know what they want to do. A lot of that comes through experience. If you've got a gut feeling one way or the other, tend to trust it, but it may also be proven wrong. I've talked to people where, I guess I'll use myself as an example. I don't want to go and work for one of the big banks. I would feel like a small cog in a big wheel, and that just doesn't satisfy me. But some people appreciate that. I would rather work for a small startup or a scale up, and that's where my primary career focus is. I think there was a video I watched the other day by Kent Beck. the three X's. So, and that's explore, expand, and extract, which is almost 3 phases of a company. So the explore is very much just your startup. We're just doing things and seeing what works. And it might be 1 in 100 items actually has any traction. Then you get to the expand phase. You're starting to solidify those ideas, make them profitable. You're probably doing a lot of firefighting because your systems can't cope with the sudden expansion of the company. And then the banks especially are in the extract phase. How can they get the maximum value from their customers? And so they'll do a lot of large projects with very small increments in terms of the profitability. And they're 3 very different ways of working. So ideally, I would suggest early in your career, it's okay to job hop a little bit, not too much, but a little bit, and go and explore each of the different phases. Find out which one works for you. I probably didn't realize until I was in my late 30s or early 40s that my space is the small companies. That's where I belong. I want to get up to a CTO level at a larger organization, but I want to be the one that makes the organization get there. I don't want to inherit it from someone else.
That's a good point.
Yeah. But other people are like, no, I would love to inherit that and then make it even better.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just a learning experience.
Yep. But yeah, I guess a good point of like, you still need to try and hope. But also, like from recruitment perspective, I guess, when we're interviewing junior candidates, we want to see some sort of passion about, so that people passionate about something. Maybe they don't have this clear idea what company they want to work and what exactly they want to do in terms of the, back end, front end, or DevOps or whatever. But we want to hear some sort of passion. And if Maggie is watching it, he probably agree with me. I would like to hear his opinion too. But so not just like, I just really want to get a job and get experience, just not that answer. Yeah.
And I think one of the real challenges there is an easy way for people to display passion is that they've gone and got some side projects, or they've had the time to go and build a network on LinkedIn. But it can be quite challenging to do that in some people don't have the time for that. So you have to find other ways to get that passion across. And that can be really challenging. Personally, I think I still find the easiest way is to go and do a side project. But if you don't have 6 hours a night to invest in that, then get involved, jump onto streams like this and leave comments and ask questions, and people will get to know your name. And it may only be an hour a week that you're investing in, but it still shows the passion.
Yeah, 100%. I guess we keep moving step by step. So what do we need to do to move from this junior role to the mid role? I guess we already did hard work. We get to junior level. We already jumped from like Dunning-Kruger effect. So we're trying to move further to the mid-level developers. So what's in your opinion need to be done to do that?
Yeah, so keeping with our Dunning-Kruger effect, we're now starting to get onto the slope of enlightenment. So becoming comfortable with actually doing coding and delivering that code. Don't expect it to be too comfortable. I'm an engineering manager. I still get very stressed every time a single line of my code is about to get released to production. I'm like, what if it fails? And it's like, I've got it all tested. I've got other people that have signed off on it, and I still stress. But it's about being comfortable going, I can do this task. I can take it on and make it work. It's knowing whether you need assistance with it. So jumping in and getting either it could be a junior or it could be a senior that you need to to give assistance in delivering that bit of code, or going, I can do this myself. I'll just get it done. Providing input and opinions to the team is a really important one. So where at that junior level, it's more about sort of asking questions and starting to provide some value. The mid-level is asking questions that are highly relevant. Their opinions are starting starting to have some traction in the team about, what if we did it this other way? And perhaps then, in some cases, arguing the point to say this is a better way and this is why. You get a better understanding of the different development principles depending on what parts of development you're in. It could be concepts like shift left or solid or dry. So different sort of paradigms around how and why you code in certain ways. I guess as the mid-level dev, you've also, or during your mid-level dev, you'll kind of complete that T-shaped skill set. So you'll have a fairly broad range of knowledge and quite deep in one particular area. Yeah. Depending on a little bit on the company you work for, a little bit on what you want to do with your career, that the bit that you've got depth in may be something quite broad like front-end development, or it might be something quite specific like I can code React or a particular language or a particular framework. So if depending a bit on where you're at in terms of understanding how you want your career to plan out, then the width of that area that you've got the deep knowledge of will vary. And I'd probably suggest most people spend up to about 4 years as a mid-level dev. Some people will rocket through it in no time, like could be 12 months, 18 months. Others might spend quite a significant amount of time there just consolidating their knowledge, adding little bits. And again, that will be influenced by the roles that you've got at the time and how diverse the tasks are that you're working on.
Yeah. And I guess we're just coming back a little bit to this junior role question that I asked before. Maggie just coming back to me saying, yeah, you're right in regards to displaying the passion. And I remember a young engineer that came in and his display of skills was that he had created a new dashboard for the application they used in the warehouse where he worked part-time.
Yeah.
That's a great example. Yes. So you might be working completely in a relevant job, but you find some project that helps, directly helps your current job that maybe not the IT job yet. Yeah.
I still remember when I was working in a bar. I needed a break from IT because, hey, we all burn out from IT after a while. So being the smart cookie I am, I decided, I can go and work in a bar. That sounds nice and easy. It's not. One of the things I ended up doing there, though, was automating their stock management system and implementing stock rotation. And we worked out it probably saved the business 10 or 15 grand a year. But it was a fairly simple database solution using Microsoft Access. And it meant that we knew what to order each week. So some of those things can be quite easy.
That's such a great example because I think like when you study IT and involved in so many IT projects, you not always realize how many businesses doing everything old school way and how many big businesses still doing everything in Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty myself. Sometimes I'm like, I can't be bothered to use a Trello board. I'll just do everything in Excel again or something like this. And I think for the graduates, that's a really great gaps that they can look at. It doesn't need to be something overwhelming. It's just need to, bring some value and solve the problem. And sometimes it's, as you mentioned, could be not that difficult from the technical point of view, but just non-technical people don't even think about it. They just like Excel will do.
Yeah, and there can be some really interesting ones. I wasn't even aware of this until I worked for one company. You can get some little Bluetooth devices called beacons or iBeacons that can help you with your proximity detection. So I've now got sitting on a desk beside me a whole pile of hardware and a bunch of these little beacons, and they were only $5 or $6 each, and hook them up with with some power and some batteries, and now I can use it to do some more home automation because it knows when I'm within a certain distance of it. So you can find some cheap projects that it demonstrates your passion. It might be completely useless, but it shows that you've had fun with it and demonstrates it. So
Yeah, no, 100%. So let's, I guess, go back to, our steps. So we just talk about the, mid-level developer. So, and the next we're going to senior. So what do you think, next step in terms of what do you need to try to show to get to senior level?
Yeah, so I think the big thing between a mid and a senior is the senior's starting to show a few signs of leadership. So starting to coach and mentor the more junior staff a little bit, help them out, being a bit more proactive with asking if they need help with stuff. It's as well as having the individual contribution, it's also recognizing that the output of the team is the valuable bit and helping the team to complete all of their tasks. In terms of like planning and task creation and task definition, starting to guide the team in certain directions rather than just questioning and coming up with ideas and opinions, actually making sure they're well thought out, well formulated, and being able to relay those opinions across to other developers. I've also mentioned it, as people would have seen on that slide, the pie-shaped skill set, which is a little bit different to the T-shape. You've now got a second leg coming down on that. So you're starting to specialize in multiple things. There's a level which may sort of fall in at the senior developer level, which I've heard of called the broken comb skill set. And so if you picture like a comb, and then you break off a whole lot of the prongs at different lengths, and so you get a whole lot of different skills. Now, I'm not really sure whether that fits into senior or goes into more of a staff engineer type role, which is a technical leadership role. It's sort of somewhere around that area. So you might start specializing in 3 or 4 or 5 different things. You'll generally spend sort of 3 years, possibly longer there. I know people that have not wanted to move into any leadership path, so they've stayed as a senior developer for more than a decade. And they've been quite fulfilled by that. They don't have the responsibility of helping other people as much. They still provide some guidance, but they're still very much an individual contributor. And they can get quite a broad and deep knowledge across their whole system.
So I guess you mentioned, that as a senior, you most likely need to be competent in a few different skills. Or is it always the case, or you can still will be this T-shape and just keep diving deeper and just being a really, really good at this one thing you're doing?
I think as a senior, you need to have at least sort of a mid-level of competence on 2 aspects, if that makes sense. So you can still specialize, and when you've got your pie-shaped skills, you might have the 2 legs coming down, but they can be different lengths. So if you've already got one that's quite deep, as the other one comes down, there's nothing stopping you from extending the first one and continuing with a very specific specialization. And I'll touch on that a little bit in the future, further ahead in this. But I think it's important to start sort of increasing the number of areas that you have the depth of knowledge in, because systems don't operate in isolation. If you're an expert front-end developer, you need to know how the back-end works, because you're going to be communicating with it through an API. If you're an expert on the back-end, you need to understand the infrastructure, because that's where your code sits. So yeah, everything is all interrelated in some way. Even a front-end developer needs to know a bit about the infrastructure, because their code has to live somewhere on the internet. It's not out there in isolation. So it's necessary to have differing levels across multiple areas, but you do have to know a bit about all of it. And I think also for a senior, they're going to get more people asking them questions about the integration. There's a bit more of the architecture level of the systems design. So it's being able to do that and being competent at it, but also being comfortable with it, to know that the systems that are being designed are going to work now and into the future. One of the things I haven't really touched on so far, but I probably should have, is the time horizons that people look at. So when you start as your graduate or your intern, you're probably only looking at what's the task I'm working on now. The junior might be looking at what's my current task and the next couple that I might work on. Mid-level's starting to go, what are all the tasks for this sprint or this cycle? Your senior might be looking at, okay, is this code going to last us into the future? Not necessarily quite at the system design level, but is this code reusable? Does it conform to best practices? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
As you're moving forward.
Yeah, and starting to make a decision about whether they want to take the leadership journey and which particular path they're going to take through that leadership journey. So it can get quite in depth. I guess is what I was going to say there.
Yeah. I just also want to hear the opinion of the audience. We have a few people watching us, and I just want to ask them, are you like a junior, mid, and senior? And how you feel about your skill set? Do you specialize in one area, or as Michael mentioned, you have a few expertise? How you feel in this? How would you describe yourself on your level and your skill set? So, if someone watching us now or watching replays, would be nice to hear from you as well and hear your opinion on this as well.
Yeah,
and
one thing that might be worth mentioning there is having the depth of knowledge doesn't mean you have to actually be able to do something, which is an interesting one. So I've never done mobile development. I've never written a single line of React. The last team that I led, we had mobile developers, watch developers, front-end developers that worked purely with React. It wasn't about me knowing how to do it. It was about me understanding all the concepts involved in it so that I could understand how everything interacted. At the senior dev level, it's probably a bit more about having experience across multiple parts of it. But as you move more into leadership, you become a little bit more detached from some of that. So very much different levels of knowledge or different experience requirements in order to have the right level of knowledge.
And I guess, when we're moving to leadership roles, what's next? What's going on in there?
Yeah, so leadership's confusing. There's all sorts of different ways to move into leadership. The company I work for at the moment, Estimate One, we've got two paths, a technical leadership and a people leadership path. So the people leadership is generally an engineering manager. We're responsible for the team delivering, for making sure that people are performing appropriately, helping them, coaching them, guiding them, but also other aspects of it, like working out what's the team's resourcing requirements. How many staff do we need in the team? Working with the product people to go, what are we going to work on next? We also have the technical path, which is more about the longer term vision for the technical aspects of the organization. So are we conforming to best practices? How can we make sure that all of our staff across multiple teams are honoring those best practices? What languages should we be coding in? What frameworks should we use? Is it okay to do this bit of code? And we're also doing a microservice migration at the moment, so there's a certain amount in there of how do we actually do that. So there's a whole lot of different aspects, even just in those two. Other companies, I think it's from memory, I think it's Invato on their engineering growth framework have an architecture path, which is more about the systems design side of things. So they've got the people leadership, the technical leadership, which is more about the coding side of things, and the architecture, which is about systems design. And then the other one that it's not very well documented by most companies, I find. But it's the real specialization where you become highly specialized in one particular aspect of something. So although you've got your broken comb skill set, by this point, one of the depth of knowledge on one item is extreme. I know a couple of people that they're getting to the specialization type level, but on multiple paths. And that's, for any developer that isn't at that level, it's really confronting, because like, how can they know that much about multiple things? But yeah, your specialization could be something like a security specialization, so information security. It can be things like GDPR or compliance, and knowing the impact of that on the technical side of things. It could be a particular framework where you just know so well how to use it that people can basically give you any task to do with it, and it's done in a very short space of time. Often you'll find the specialization side of things will end up more in sort of consulting or agency type work. There's not many companies have the need for, on an ongoing basis, for specialization, but they may get people in. A good example was one company I worked at. We wanted to improve our system security. So we went to an external company who had 5 or 10 or 20 specialists who all just specialized in system security, and they did a penetration test on our site. They assessed it against a whole lot of different standards, and they gave us a report on all of the problems so we could then go and fix it. Yeah. For the same amount, we probably could have employed someone for a year or two, but we didn't need to do it once a year. So we would prefer to go and get a consultant for that. And I'm sure there's plenty of other different leadership paths. When you start looking at the much higher levels, like the CTO type level, you see a whole lot of different titles. There's the Chief Technical Officer. You'll find there's Chief Product Officer. Some people choose to move from development into product. There's testing paths, so QA and that sort of thing, which can really benefit from having the development background. Or you get your CISO, your Chief Information Security Officer, or your CIO, the Chief Information Officer. All of these different roles that are either a bit more specialized or slightly different to development, but they all benefit from having that development experience.
And also avoiding this, silos organizations where, the sales team selling something and then technical team trying to make what sales team just sold.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I was talking. A friend of mine. We worked together, be over a decade ago now, and we were both doing what was it? Web application developers, I think was the random job title we were given. Don't really know what it means, but apparently we developed stuff. And he moved into a technical pre-sales role, and I was like, "Oh, is he getting out of development?" But then recently, I've seen him start working for AWS. I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. He must have actually still been on the tools doing that. So I think the role there was working out the integration of the products they offered into the client's website. So it was a very hands-on role, very technical, and through that he's moved up through the different paths. And yeah, then you get into, for those that are more people person than a lot of developers are, you get those sort of those pre-sales type roles, which can still involve a lot of coding, but also involve people.
Yeah, 100%. There is like so many different roles, and for different organizations, the same role can actually mean quite a different things as well. So as I guess, we just talk about these different levels of, junior, mid, and senior developers. But again, when it's really will be different from organization to organization. And, for some organizations, someone who senior wouldn't be mid in another organization. And I guess this is a tricky part in a way as well. It's not just, some strict brackets where you become junior, mid, or senior. So it's a process. And sometimes you go from junior straight to senior, but changing to completely different company in the structure.
Yeah, and I've seen quite a few cases where people have gone from senior in an agency environment to a mid-level dev in a product environment. Part of that comes down to just it's a completely different way of working. So a lot of agencies are very project focused. So it's about time to market. How quickly can we get this project delivered and out to customers? Product is often more about it's product based. It's how long can we keep this product alive? So it doesn't matter if it takes a bit longer to get it developed, if that means it's going to be saleable for a longer period. So there are different ways of doing things. You've got different primary concerns when you're writing the code. So you'll often find changing in one direction or the other may actually move you down a level, because you've got to unlearn and then relearn how to do certain tasks. And yeah, I think there's also, to a certain degree, a bit of marketing in some organizations. So sometimes an organization wants to be able to say, we'll send out a senior developer for this, maybe as part of a consulting type arrangement. That isn't always a senior that's going out. It's someone who's got that title, but they may only be a mid-level. It's just, we can charge more for a senior. So sometimes the job titles don't necessarily mean a lot. Other times they have quite a lot of meaning to them.
Yeah. And I guess also back to the, it depends on the organization as well. And, but I guess for some people, how to maybe overcome it, like if you're senior developer at some organization and you get offer like a more like junior to mid role in another organization, but the stack and the tools looks really good, and how to overcome this, taking the step back?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of different aspects to it. Sometimes it's just a job title change. And when you look at the remuneration or the package that they're offering, it could be the same as what you're on or even more. So yeah, don't necessarily assess things just on the job title. Look at the whole package. Job title, skills they require, the company and what other benefits they've got, the culture of it. I've left companies before, and I've taken pay cuts before just because I wanted to go and work for a company with a better culture. And that's okay to do that. I'm pretty sure if I look through all my job titles, there would be demotions in there, apart from my first one, of course, where I went from CTO to basically pleb. It was, there will be others where the job titles imply a demotion. Some organizations won't put any indication of the job title, of the level of seniority. So it's possible that you move from a senior role to one that's just a software engineer role, and they don't signify what level you're at. So yeah, I guess the job titles themselves don't have a lot of meaning, but you can gain an understanding of what people are looking for by reading deeper into things and ensuring that their expectations and what's on offer aligns with what you believe you're at.
Yeah, 100%. And also understanding what's important for you. And I guess, we were mentioning in the beginning of our stream, sometimes in the very beginning and really hard to understand what you want to specialize, what's important for you, you still want to explore. But I guess when you already get to this sort of, 3-4 years experience, you'll start to get some sort of picture around what is actually important for you. Is company mission important for you, or the particular skill set that you want to gain? Like trying, I guess, to set your career goals and be more specific about it.
Yeah, no, I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and I'm sure she won't mind me mentioning this, but when she came into a particular role, she was there going, I am an API developer. I want to do back-end code. And I can't remember how long she's been in the role, probably 2 or 3 years, might be a little bit more. She's come to the realization she absolutely loves front-end development. The biggest problem for her was that at a previous employer, they'd always done front-end development with jQuery, and she didn't like it. But once she got exposed to React and started doing that, she became really passionate about React and front end, and now has almost no interest in back end development. So it's your exposure to different things will change your opinions.
Yep.
I'm sure if I sit down and actually start writing some React code, I'll probably like it. But at the moment, I can't think of anything worse than doing front-end development. I've always preferred back-end development. But even so, that could change in a heartbeat.
Yeah, definitely. And it's okay to change direction, but I think it's about having direction in the first place, which is really important.
Yeah,
and if you get exposure to something else, there is nothing wrong changing it, as long as you keep moving.
There's one thing that often gets mentioned at work of strong opinions loosely held. And I kind of view that with career direction as well. Have a really strongly defined path for where you're heading, but make sure it's loosely held. If something changes, be willing to shift it. You don't have to go to that destination. So, yeah, and that's very much the same through a lot of development. It's like I have quite strong opinions about a lot of things in IT, and I will voice them, but I'm also more than willing for someone to shoot me down or present another opinion, and maybe, hopefully, one day that changes my mind about something. You put the shout out to people before, or to ask for their input, and the thought that was going through my head was, and who disagrees with me and why? Come on, challenge me, someone. Because yes, I'm here, I'm talking about this and claiming I'm an expert, for want of a better term, but I want to be shot down. I want to learn.
Yeah, no, 100%. And to add on to your previous quote, there is another similar quote around I don't remember exactly how it goes, but the idea is sometimes we're so protecting our achievements that we actually forget to progress.
Yeah.
And it's I guess similar to what you mentioned in terms of the strong opinions who loosely held, because so sometimes we just like, we already achieved it, we already Java expert, and sometimes it's just hard to just let it go and think about, oh my god, I spent this 5 years developing this skill, I realized that I'm interested in something else. And letting it go will be quite difficult. But I guess the thing to remember, you're not starting from scratch, you're starting from experience. And that's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and you can't really change the past either. So if you shift what your focus is, then you can't go and undo any of the journey you've done. You're now just starting from a different point, and you're probably closer to that new end point anyway. I spent 25 years actually on the tools delivering code. I've decided I want to move into the people leadership side of things. If I went back to where I started, then my journey's probably not going to be much different until the last few years. So I haven't spent 20 or 25 years on the wrong path. I've only spent sort of a couple of years on the wrong path, but it wasn't completely wrong. It was just running slightly askew. So I've still progressed anyway.
Yeah, so you still gain experience in some area anyway. So the life is our experience. But again, it's good to have direction,
Yes.
It's good to have direction.
Yeah.
It helps.
No point sailing aimlessly.
Yes. So I guess we're already going over 50 minutes. It's definitely time to wrap up. I know we can talk forever. We have one more question from he before we finish. Hi, where can we intern and graduate program? Are these programs paid? Why might someone not be able to get these positions? I think we mentioned a little bit in the beginning in terms of, you already mentioned a few companies that run internal programs, but maybe if you want to just answer the second part of the question.
Yeah, I guess in terms of finding the intern and graduate programs, it's very much they will advertise through appropriate channels. You'll find them on LinkedIn. You'll find them on some of them on Stack Overflow. You'll hear about them through universities and through boot camps. In Australia, they're paid. In other countries, they may or may not be. It depends on the country. I've heard of some in the US where you actually pay for the privilege of working for a place. But Australia's employment laws mean that they must be paid. And why might someone not be able to get one of them? Well, the biggest thing is there's not many of them. There's only a few positions available. So you have to do something to stand out from everyone else to make the company want you. I don't know how many graduate or intern positions there are each year, but there will be a lot more graduates than there are positions. So do things that make you stand out. If you don't get accepted in the first round of graduate intern programs that's offered after you graduate, then spend the next 6 months working on a side project. Get something up and online. You might end up self-employed and having the next unicorn company worth more than $1 billion. But if nothing else, you've got something to show a potential employer, and it might be the bit that means you get the job.
But there is still a chance of the unicorn.
Very, very small, but still a chance.
So there is still a chance. What was this joke then? The guy approached his future wife and said that he wants her to go on a date, and she said like only if you would be the last man on earth, I might go on a date with you. And he's like, oh, there is still a chance.
Yes, definitely. Never give up hope.
So my jokes, I need to work on my presenting the jokes to the stream, need to work on it. But anyway, Michael, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. He's saying great seminar. Thank you, Heath. Thank you for your question. Also, just before we finish, briefly, I just want to remind you that we're going live every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. So next Wednesday topic is, who we have next? Next Wednesday, what's the day today? I'm so lost with the COVID.
Today
Okay.
is the 18th.
18th. So on the 25th of August, we're going to talk with Adam about how to deal with imposter syndrome to progress in your IT career. That's the opposite of Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Wednesday after, we're going to talk with Karthik about what does a delivery manager do and how to become one. So quite a specific one, and sometimes quite a confusing title as well. So we're going to uncover it on 1st of September. And of course, guys, if you're enjoying our discussion, please make sure you like this video because it will encourage me to keep going, keep bringing various experts from my network to share their knowledge, such as Michael, So, and of course, subscribe to YouTube channel to make sure you get notified about upcoming events, and also you can watch replays there. And to just wrap it up, in last 30 seconds, I guess. Michael, just can you summarize all our discussion in one sentence?
That's a challenging one. I'd probably say just enjoy the journey. You have no idea where you're going to end up, but it's going to be a lot of fun getting there. And the only other bit of advice I'd offer, and this is predominantly for those who are entering the industry, don't chase the money. You work in IT, you get paid good. Just chase the enjoyment.
Perfect. Enjoy the journey. Don't chase the money, and you'll get paid anyway. I like it. And concentrate on the things you enjoy doing. 100%. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Again, make sure to hit this like button if you actually enjoyed this conversation, only if you did. And I will see you next Wednesday at 5:30. Thank you.